The year is 1470. In the mountains of Thessaly, a bell rings one final time across a valley that will never hear it again. Inside the convent of St. Catherine, 23 women kneel in prayer. Their lips move in unison, forming words they've spoken every dawn for years. But today, the words taste different, like ash, like goodbye. Outside the stone walls, the horizon bleeds red. Not from sunrise, but from the banners of an empire that has already swallowed kingdoms whole. The Ottoman army doesn't march, it flows, a river of steel and fire consuming everything in its path. Sister Alani, the abbess, clutches a silver crucifix passed down for generations. Her hands tremble, not from fear, but from knowing death is coming. Yet death would have been mercy, because what followed wasn't simple conquest. It was deliberate, calculated erasure. This story isn't in your history books. It was buried, hidden in missionary letters, Ottoman state records, and testimonies sealed within Vatican vaults. Centuries of silence smothered their voices, but not anymore, because the question isn't whether you can handle the truth, it's whether you'll remember it. You think what the Ottomans did was disturbing? Imagine not hitting that subscribe button and missing out on our $300 Amazon giveaway when we hit 1,000 subs. Now let's get back to the video. The bell has stopped ringing, the prayers have faded, and the doors are about to break. 17 years earlier, in 1453, Constantinople had fallen, the jewel of Christendom, gone in 53 days of cannon fire and blood. The Hagia Sophia, once the greatest cathedral in the world, was stripped of its crosses within hours. Its mosaics were plastered over, its bells melted down. Within a week, the call to prayer echoed from its domes where hymns had risen for 9 centuries. Sultan Mehmed II stood in that sacred nave and declared it a mosque, not because he needed another place to pray, but because he understood what few conquerors do. You don't defeat a people by killing them. You defeat them by erasing who they were. The Ottomans didn't just seize land, they seized identity. When Mehmed looked west toward the scattered remains of Byzantium, he saw wounds that refused to heal. Every church bell that rang, every monastery still standing, every cross casting its shadow on conquered soil, these were acts of defiance. Every nun praying in Latin was proof that faith could outlast armies. So he made a decision. If they would not convert, they would disappear. Not through massacre. Massacres create martyrs, martyrs breed songs, and songs keep memories alive. Mehmed wanted silence. By 1470, this method had spread across the empire. Greek monasteries in Moria, Serbian convents in the Balkans, Armenian churches in Anatolia. Some were burned, others converted. Many simply emptied, erased without a trace. First came the offer, then came the silence. The convent of St. Catherine, perched on a lonely hillside in Thessaly, was next. Isolated, unguarded, unaware. To the empire, it was another test, another footnote. But to the women inside, it was the whole world. They weren't warriors. Their weapons were rosaries. Their armor was faith. Sister Alani had been abbess for 12 years, once a healer in a village lost to plague. Sister Magdalena, 19, still bore the calluses of farm work, her family gone to raiders. Sister Theodora, 70, had outlived emperors and abbesses alike. None had ever faced this. If this moment in history doesn't move you, perhaps you've forgotten what our ancestors died to teach, that the most dangerous act against power is remembering who you are. Now watch what happens when faith meets empire. The first cannonball hits just after dawn, not the chapel, but the bell tower. The sound is apocalyptic. Stone bursts into the air, iron shrieks, and the bell that's rung every morning for 140 years shatters mid-swing. Its pieces rain down on the courtyard where the sisters once grew herbs for healing. The same hands that tended those plants now cover trembling ears. Sister Alani doesn't scream. She rises, crucifix raised high, and begins to sing, Kyrie eleison, Lord, have mercy. One by one, the others join her. 23 voices rise against the roar of an empire. But empires don't listen to songs. By midday, the gates are breached. Ottoman soldiers pour in, not with swords, but with ledgers, quills, and ink pots. They move like clerks, not conquerors, counting, recording, cataloging. To them, these women aren't souls, they're assets. A translator, a Greek man once from these hills, steps forward. His voice trembles as he reads, "By order of Sultan Mehmed II, all subjects must submit to the authority of the Sublime. Those who convert will be protected. Those who refuse will face the consequences of rebellion." Sister Ilani steps forward, calm, resolute. "Tell your Sultan," she says in flawless Greek, "we have already given our lives to a king. We have nothing left to surrender." The officer in charge, Hassan Pasha, his name still found in Ottoman military records, doesn't rage, he smiles, because he knows something they don't. The Ottomans have perfected how to break people without killing them. That night, the women are locked in their own chapel. No food, no water, only darkness, and the laughter of soldiers outside. Two young sisters weep softly, their sobs echoing off cold stone. Then Sister Magdalena, barely 20, whispers a psalm. "The Lord is my shepherd, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death." Slowly, the weeping fades. The Ottomans underestimated them. These women had trained for suffering, fasting, silence, cold vigils. What soldiers called torture, they called devotion. But Hassan Pasha is patient. He's seen this before. "Faith," he once wrote to the Sultan, "burns brightest just before it dies." On the second day, the doors open. A servant enters with bread and water. The sisters stare. Hunger gnaws, but Ilani only nods. "They want gratitude," says Sister Theodora. "Then we fast." They do not touch the food. By the third day, their lips are cracked, bleeding. Their hands tremble. The younger sisters can barely stand, but they do not break. Hassan Pasha watches from the courtyard, arms crossed. He's impressed, frustrated, and for a moment maybe even respectful. But respect doesn't change strategy. When the doors open again, it's not a servant, it's Hassan himself. He speaks in Turkish, his translator trailing behind like a shadow. "You are not criminals," he says. "You are not enemies. You are mistaken. The Sultan is merciful. He offers you new lives, new names, protection. All you must do is speak the words silence." Or, he continues, "You may come with us to Constantinople. The Sultan will hear your case himself. Perhaps he'll be moved by your conviction." He pauses, but the road is long. The weak do not survive it. It isn't a threat, it's a promise. Sister Ilani looks at her sisters, some barely conscious, some praying, some staring at the floor as if searching for strength in stone. Then she turns to Hassan. "We will walk." The smile returns to his face. "Good, we leave at dawn." That night, the nuns hold each other in darkness. No one speaks until Sister Magdalena begins to hum, a hymn from Vespers. One by one, the others join her. Outside, soldiers pause. Some look away. One will later tell his grandson of the women who sang themselves to death. But that story, too, will fade. By dawn, 23 women walk south toward the coast, hands bound, feet bleeding. No carts, no horses, just dust and the merciless sun. The soldiers don't rush them. They don't need to. The road is punishment enough. On the second day, Sister Irene collapses. 62 years old, knees long failing. She tries to rise, but her body won't obey. The soldiers keep walking. Sister Magdalena and Sister Anna lift her between them, carrying her 3 more miles. When they stop for the night, Irene is unconscious. By morning, she's gone. They bury her with their hands. No tools, no ceremony, just whispered prayers. The soldiers watch, unmoved. Hassan notes it in his ledger. 22 remaining. On the 4th day, it happens again. Sister Callista, silent since the siege, stops walking. She sits in the road, closes her eyes, and doesn't rise. They leave her there. By the time they reach the port of Volos 7 days later, only 18 remain. But something has changed. The weeping has stopped. The begging has stopped. They walk in silence, not the silence of defeat, but of women who've already made their choice. At the front walks Sister Ilani, still leading even with bound hands. On the 7th morning, Hassan calls for her. She's taken to his tent. What happens next isn't in Ottoman records, but a Venetian merchant saw the aftermath. "I saw them bring her back at dawn," he wrote in a 2003 discovered letter. "She could not walk. Her eyes were open, but she was not inside them. They dressed her in silk, paraded her as a convert. But as I passed, I saw her lips moving, still praying in Latin. They had taken her body, but her soul remained unbroken." This was the Ottoman strategy history never taught you. They didn't want martyrs. Martyrs spark resistance, songs, stories. The dead become saints. The Ottomans wanted ghosts, women who walked, breathed, existed, but were never whole again. Living proof that rebellion was futile. Silent warnings carved into flesh instead of stone. Sister Alani walked the rest of the way to the coast, silent and hollow. She never spoke again, never looked anyone in the eye. The younger sisters wept. The older ones only prayed harder. At the port of Volos, they were herded onto a galley, a massive warship of chains and benches. Not a vessel of mercy, but control. Slaves, prisoners, cargo. The nuns were chained to the benches, wrists locked in iron rings. A ship's manifest found in 1987 in Istanbul's Topkapi Palace Museum lists them coldly. Religious captives, female, 18. Destination, imperial household. Purpose, domestic service and conversion. That word, service, did a lot of work. The voyage lasted 12 days. The sea was cruel. Storms tore the deck, salt burned their lips, and the ocean's violence broke their bodies, but not their faith. At night, Sister Magdalena whispered psalms under her breath, her voice barely audible over the crashing waves. Other prisoners, Greeks, Serbs, Italians, turned to listen. For a moment, the sea seemed still. When the ship entered the Bosphorus, Constantinople rose before them. Domes, minarets, endless walls. The city gleamed like a blade. Once called the city of the world's desire, it would now become their cage. From the docks, they marched through narrow streets lined with soldiers and merchants. People stopped to stare. Christian nuns among captives were rare, even in an empire of conquest. They passed gardens where fountains sang and peacocks screamed until, in the shadow of Hagia Sophia, once a church, now a mosque, they were forced to kneel. As the call to prayer echoed, one sister whispered, "We are home, but it is no longer ours." They were taken below the palace, not to its grand halls, but down spiraling stone steps into tunnels of damp and darkness, a place that didn't officially exist. Beneath Topkapi Palace, archaeologists in 2011 broke through a false wall and froze. Dozens of crosses, scratched into stone with fingernails and pottery shards, covered the walls. Beneath them, 4 Latin words, lux in tenebris lucet, the light shines in the darkness. This was their chapel. For months, perhaps years, they lived beneath the palace, serving by day, praying by night. No altar, no priest, only memory. They whispered psalms from recall, shared stolen bread and well water for communion, and carved their faith into stone, one mark at a time, knowing no one might ever see it. Sister Magdalena was among them, the girl who whispered psalms on the ship, who carried Sister Irene on the road, who refused to look away when they brought Sister Alani back in silk. She became their voice in the dark. Archaeologists found her mark too, a small bird scratched into the corner of the wall. Beside it, 23 lines, one for each sister, but only 11 complete. The rest trailed off into nothing. They used broken pottery for candle holders, a scrap of linen for an altar cloth, and from a shattered mirror, a crude cross. Each night after the palace slept, they gathered in their secret chapel. No hymns, no sermons, only whispers. Each woman knelt and shared a memory, her home, her church bell, the warmth of bread before dawn. Those memories became their psalms, offerings to a God who still listened in the dark. A Venetian prisoner in 1478 wrote of voices beneath the harem, women singing in Latin. Historians dismissed it, Until the chapel was found and the crosses stopped, Ottoman records from 1482 mention a cleansing of palace staff under the new sultan. No names, no details, just one cold word in the ledger: disposed. The nuns of St. Catherine vanished. 18 women who had walked 7 days through hell, crossed the sea in chains, and carved prayers into stone, gone. Yet their chapel remained. A French diplomat in 1712 wrote of a rumor among palace servants that on certain nights the air turned cold and faint Latin singing echoed through the lower halls. He dismissed it as foolish superstition, but the walls don't lie. In 2011, archaeologists studying the chapel found traces of wax mixed with herbs from candles nuns once made, which means their vigil lasted far longer than anyone believed. Months, maybe years, carving crosses, whispering prayers, refusing to disappear. Sister Magdalena's bird was the final mark. Beside it, etched faintly in Greek, "We endure." But they did more than endure. They left behind something empires couldn't erase, a room full of crosses, proof that faith could outlast chains and kings. The Ottoman Empire ruled 6 centuries, spanning continents, rewriting cultures, yet it couldn't erase 18 women who prayed in the dark. Think about that. An empire of armies, cannons, and wealth, undone by fingernails and faith. They didn't reclaim their convent or see freedom, but they left a mark. History is written by victors. Memory is written by survivors. Sometimes survival looks like a cross carved in darkness, a prayer whispered in a forbidden tongue, a bird scratched into stone. Centuries later, we found it. In 2011, when archaeologists stood in that hidden chapel, one asked, how long did they keep the vigil? The waxen carvings suggest years. Night after night in absolute darkness, they refused to stop believing. Even as sisters vanished, even as hope died, they kept carving. That wasn't faith alone. That was defiance. The Ottoman Empire is gone, its sultan's dust, its army's memory. The palace stands as a museum now, tourists wandering above what lies buried beneath. But the crosses remain, and that faint Latin phrase still whispers, "Lux in tenebris lucet," the light shines in the darkness. Sister Magdalena carved it knowing she'd never leave, her name forgotten, her world erased. Yet she understood what empires never could. You can conquer land, but not the human spirit. Their voices survived 5 centuries to reach you. Remember them. Keep them alive. Subscribe so their light never fades.